Meow, I'm Tonya Todd, creator of 52 Love. 52 Love began as a blog series, offering one love lesson per week for an entire year of intimacy tips to try with your partner. From there, I hosted the 52 Love podcast, where existing couples came on the show, tried the tips, and shared their experience with it. The book version came out last year, and on February 14th, we have something new to add to the series. 52 Love, A Year of Romance. In this short story collection, 12 authors are joining me in taking characters from our existing works and using one of the 52 Love tips as a story prompt. And to celebrate the release of Volume 1, we are recording author-to-author interviews so that you can hear a little bit about their story process, how they became involved, and how their characters connect to a greater literary universe. We hope you enjoy this behind-the-scenes glimpse. Check out 52 Love, A Year of Romance on February 14th.
Brandy M. Miller, and my YouTube channel is Creating with Love. And that's pretty much my entire focus in my literary career and in everything that I create, is the search for love and the truth about love. Because I think in our day and age, we very often get so confused. I mean, especially with the English the language, love is such an ephemeral term, if you will. You know, it's not really nailed down to any one thing. You can love your tuna fish sandwich as much as you love your dog and your husband, right? But I'm pretty sure you don't love your tuna fish sandwich the same way you love your dog and your husband.
Right.
So it's a very loose language, which leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation of what it really means to love. And so that's one of the reasons why I go on these journeys, is what is it all about? And that's one of the reasons why I wrote this story that I wrote in 52 Love, is the Fervent Verses. So yeah.
Yes, and like I said, I really enjoyed reading it.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about you, Miss Julia.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, am I popping up on your screen, or is there
I
like a
see you.
setting to Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So.
No, I'm sure it's figured out. I've never really recorded on this platform, I don't think, before. So hi, I write as J.K. Allen. I am currently in kind of this weird author space of, we are in between, like pivoting between like projects and genres and stuff. And so I'm working on getting new projects and stuff out, but I'm very excited about this project because I remember doing the podcast with Tonya, and so my story is called Count the Little Things. And it was based off of some characters that I was writing. Trilogy. It was like the second trilogy in this world of um having to do with Angelborn and Demon kind. Um, so young adult story. I did kind of do a little bit of a pivot from what my podcast specifically about warming up in the me that week challenged me of doing was stepping out of my comfort zone, and it was more acts of service that I really remember focusing on. So the story is kind of more less about warming stuff, less about baking, like I said, in the cold winter months, and more about uh stepping out of your comfort zone and showing love in different ways, that maybe don't
Yeah.
feel so easy.
Absolutely, because it really is those little things that tend to grease the relationship. It's small
Oh
acts of
yes.
service that very much make a long-term relationship possible.
Yes. And at the time in the relationship that I was in when I was doing the podcast theme activity, we were also long distance. And so I remember in the interview I rewatched it, and I was talking about like at different points of being like, sometimes with long distance it's hard because you feel like you can't have those off, thing has to be perfect because you only get so much time together. But that can put like unnecessary strain on the relationship of being like, no, we're allowed to have like off days. But it was nice because it was right around Valentine's Day. We didn't celebrate like on very nice to come together for my visit. And like I said, I was stepping outside my comfort zone doing baking, which I never do. Because I'm very much like, I love cooking. Cooking is an art, baking is a science, and I have never been the best at measuring.
Yes. Yeah.
It can be
Baking
quite large.
Baking is one of those things where it's very easy for a small mistake to become an unedible product.
Huge ramifications.
Yes, when I was 6, I found a recipe for a chocolate cake in my textbook, and I decided I was going to serve my whole family this chocolate cake. And I wrote only one thing wrong, and that was the amount of salt. And so I wrote down tablespoon instead of teaspoon. And so we had a salt lick instead of a chocolate cake.
Oh yes.
Such a big difference.
Like my margin of error could be as high as 15%. So I don't even know how I would try to be so careful. And I would often get the exact opposite of the reaction we were supposed to get. My teacher would be like, "What happened? What's your margin of error?" And I would tell them, and they'd be like, "Oh wow." And I was like, "Yeah." So baking is something that like I always get so nervous about. And that's probably why I pivoted away aspect in writing the story, because I'm like, I don't know enough about baking to focus on writing baking into a story. So like I said, I focus more on like stepping out of the comfort zone with my character having anxiety specifically as a teenage girl, and and just like stories about like saying love. Yeah, I love you for the first time, in a relationship, and it's kind of her first healthy relationship, and so step of like, oh my gosh, this is.
Yeah, I mean, that moment of having somebody that you've been with for a while say I love you and mean that thing, and you know that they mean it. That's a very special, precious thing.
Yeah, and I feel like you played around with.
I'm sorry, you broke
I feel
up
like
for a moment.
in your story, I feel like you played around with those themes of like of like the expressing of love, but I loved how you approached it from like the angle of, I mean, she's an older woman, but that feeling of like the receiving the love was the struggle for your character.
Yeah, she's very much got that the trauma background that she has, which is covered in the original book, The End of Purgatory, means that she doesn't really believe that she's lovable. And so somebody trying to love her has to first break through that wall of disbelief. And that's kind of John's whole thing, is he's been slowly working his way toward drawing her closer and pulling her in and convincing her that his love is trustworthy, that it's going to be there. It doesn't matter what she's done. It doesn't matter where she's going. He's going to be there. And that is something that's my experience, because I did have a very traumatic childhood incidents. And so when my husband and I met, real love felt weird. I didn't know how to receive it. It was so counter to everything that was in my past that I didn't have a framework to interpret it. I didn't understand it. And so in a sense, at first it scared me, and at the same time made me think he can't really love me because he's not doing the things that all the other people did that said they loved me.
Right. No, that's a terrible experience for too many people, for sure. And no, about the fact that your nervous system registers safety as familiar, right? It's not healthy. It's never about what's healthy. It's never about what's actually safe. It's like, if you're used to the chaos, that's what body. And so when you experience that first time of healthy, oh, this is a normal, healthy relationship, your body, like your nervous system freaks out. Like, this is not cool.
Yeah, this is actually unsafe. Your body says this is unsafe. I don't know what to do with this.
Exactly. And then you have all of those bad habits from other relationships that want to like pop in and like sabotage things. And yeah. It's definitely a whole journey to go through the healing to get to
Yeah.
I deserve and can accept love.
Right, exactly. And it's not a one-time thing either. It's a continual process.
Mm-hmm.
Because even up until last year, there were things that I didn't realize I was doing that were sabotaging my ability to receive my husband's love. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
one of those was I had a one ring mentality where, I was always after the next thing, like trying to
Mm-hmm.
make success happen. Right.
Yes,
Without
yes.
having by the world standards. So I wanted lots of, money or a big house or whatever. And so I always had this focused goal. And so I perceived that he was an obstacle to that goal, then
Mm-hmm.
he was the villain of my story suddenly because he
Mm-hmm.
was slowing me
Mm-hmm.
down and stopping me from getting where I thought I needed to be. And then I realized, no, his gift was the gift of being present. But that gift slows you down, right?
Yes.
You have to slow down to be present.
Yes.
And so I was getting mad at him for doing the very thing that love does well.
Yes.
Love is present. It is simply there with you.
Yes.
And it appreciates
Oh.
you just the way you are. It doesn't ask you to be somebody you're not. It doesn't fault you for all the things you've got going wrong in your life. It's just there
Mm-hmm.
with you.
Yes,
And
yes.
so it's very easy to get impatient with the person whose gift is presence because they're not moving.
Mm-hmm.
They're the rock. And you're like, come on, I'm an eagle. I got wings. We got to fly.
You're speaking to my soul. Yeah, this whole spring and summer has been a big journey about pain and healing and slowing down. And you're so right, because healing is like never one and done. It's always layers and sinking in and
It's
settling
a
into the
spiral.
truth.
It's a
Yeah.
spiral of
Yes.
learning.
Yes. And it's really hard because when you look at that spiral from the wrong perspective, you see yourself just going in circles on the floor, right? When you look top down, you're like, oh, I'm just spinning in circles, starting back at square one. But from the
Yeah.
accurate perspective is the side where you see how you're ascending the whole
Yeah,
time. So as
exactly.
it's kind of like when you're tackling that lesson again, I always view it as like it's never a test, it's practice, right? You're
Yeah,
presented
yeah,
with opportunities again and again to practice what you want to do to react or, respond better to the and apply what you've been learning this whole time. I really hate that when people are like, "Oh, you're being tested," and I was like, "No, it's practice." But like when you see, like I said, from the accurate perspective of the side view, you see how you're growing and you're rising the whole time. And it's like, oh no, I'm not starting back at square one. We're just having that
yeah,
opportunity, like I said, to apply the
yeah,
lessons we've been learning and just build those steps again and again. And
exactly.
because it is such a, but that's the thing is like patience has to come first because it's been such a slow process. And like, I think part of the
Yeah,
struggle too is when you have that trauma response of like, you feel like you have to get to those accomplishments. Those goalposts matter so much because we've had to earn relationships. We've had to prove
we've had to earn love. Yes.
anything. Yes, this whole time.
Yeah.
So
Any
that
indication of love was something we had to perform for. So when you encounter somebody who
exactly.
doesn't expect your performance, they're happy to for you to just be who you are. You don't know how to deal with that.
Exactly. And then
There's
also it's
this
so hard to get out of that mindset of I need to grind, I need to hustle, I need to push and prove and do, right? To slow
yes.
down feels like again, once again, unsafe, but also like I don't know how to do that, right? That's this
Right.
whole summer has been a process of like being forced to slow down and just sit and be like, I need to rest and I need to learn how to be okay with me resting, right? I need to
Yeah.
learn how to be okay
Yeah.
with like I deserve an earned rest just by existing. We don't have to do anything to prove ourselves. Yeah, but it's like, what do you mean?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and we live in such a performance-oriented culture where
Yes.
everything is measured by our bank account or our titles or our degrees or our status, and people tend to treat one another as less than if they don't
Yes.
see a list of accomplishments 5 miles wide, right?
Right.
But we miss the value of simple presence, of somebody just being there with you in the moment. I mean, when you're grieving and you're hurting, you don't need somebody rushing you. You need somebody to be present with you. But we don't value those people because they're not quote, quote, productive. But they are productive. Right. They are productive at consoling the heart.
Oh, I love.
They are productive in terms of being that ear that people need in their moment of trial and grief. They don't need somebody rushing them. They need somebody to sit with them.
And the most beautiful thing about those people is like, I think it's like Maya Angelou who said, like, no one's going to remember what you said. No one will remember what you did. They always will remember how you made them feel. Right. That, to paraphrase that beautiful quote.
No, that's
like,
pretty...
Yeah, because it's like, how do we even introduce, when you first meet someone, oh, what do you do? Like, we care so much about the tasks, the accomplishments, the achievements, right? But that's not what matters at the end. Relationship is never about what you do for the other person or what they do for you. It's always the presence, like you said, just them being in the moment with you and all of that stuff. And I think that mindset has really like filtered into our relationships, because it's like, how many people would be like, if you love me, you would do this. Right. Rather than accepting love, right? Just accepting it in every form. And that's not to say that people shouldn't challenge themselves to be like, oh, if you accept love in this way, I should start not performing, but I should start attempting to show and demonstrate love in that way. But I think that there's that's where a lot of like conflict comes in, of being like, I show love this way, you receive it the opposite way. So then we're kind of missing each other. Tonya and I talked a little bit in our interview about, like, the different like love, is, and that, and how it's often a miscommunication. But it's like, we have always had, I feel like, in that relationships, that mindset of like, if you love me, you would do this, or if you don't do this, that means you don't love me then. And that can be a really unhealthy way of looking at relationships.
Also comes from that trauma background, though.
Yes.
Because trauma says, if you don't let me manipulate you, you don't love me.
Right. Really
weird, because manipulation is not the same as love. Somebody
or
who
even when you
doesn't feel the need to manipulate.
Yes. Or even when you have that wound of, I have never, like the hyper independence wound of like, I've had to do everything for myself. So the first time you feel safe with someone, you're like, I need to be able to rely on you to do this for me, because I've never had the trust and ability to ask anyone else. And if they reasonably are like, I don't want to do that for you because I think you should learn that to do that yourself, then that feels like, oh my gosh, if you love me, you would just do the one thing I asked you to do for me. Without being able to balance it with the like I said, like the valuable lesson of like, if you help a butterfly out of their cocoon, their wings are not going to be strong enough to fly ever, right? So I think a lot of it is like a trauma response, and because it's just like, you carry these wounds and then you reflect that out into your relationship, and you don't accurately receive the truth in those situations.
Yeah, exactly. So the 52 love lesson my characters used was Fervent Verses, as I think I said earlier. But at any rate, and the reason is because when my husband and I were getting to know one another on a more romantic level, I had gone away to Catholic school. So we grew up in the same town. I had gone away to Catholic school, which was an hour and a half away from home. And during the week, I had nobody, literally nobody. My grandparents didn't even allow me to go on walks in the country because they were afraid something might happen to me. I had no friends at the school. It was a very cliquish school. These kids had all grown up together. I was the new girl. Nobody knew me. I didn't fit in because I was from public school, and they dreamed of going to public school. This was a small Catholic school. Those kids would have lasted 5 minutes.
Right.
They had no idea what they were asking for, but they were all dreamed of public school life because they felt freedom. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You have no idea.
Right.
At any rate, so I'm the total outsider here, and I took a huge risk. I had broken up with my husband in March because I thought he didn't care, because he wasn't handsy like the other guys. He didn't try to make out with me. He wasn't trying to get into my bra and panties. In fact, at one point in time, even after I broke up with him, we were standing together, and there's this young woman who came down the steps, and she was quite busty for her age, and the boys were just
Yes.
flocked around her like bees
Oh
around
yeah.
honey. And I looked at that and I said, I wish boys noticed me like that. And he looked at me and he said, really? You do realize they're just around her for her tits, right? Do you want guys looking at you for your tits, or would you rather them noticing what's in your head? And he was the first guy who gave me the clue that what was in my head and my heart was of greater value than what was in my bra and my underwear. And so even though after the summer ended, I just couldn't forget about him. So I ended up writing to him and telling him that I couldn't forget about him, and that I was sorry that I broke up, and that I was sorry that I hurt him. And he wrote back. And my mother had always told me, don't write gushy letters to boys because they don't like them. You're going to turn them off and they won't want to be around you anymore. But he ate it up. He wrote back. He was and we would write. I think we kept the post office in business.
Oh, that's so sweet though. I love that.
And that was how our relationship really cultivated. And even years later, when we would get into an argument, or my feelings would be crushed because of something that happened between the two of us, I would go back to those letters and reread them and remind myself that he did love me, that this moment was not reflective of the whole totality of our relationship.
Yes.
That was really an important insight for me, is that you can have a disagreement and it doesn't have to destroy the whole of your relationship.
Yes.
It doesn't, just because you have a conflict doesn't mean that has to be the end.
Right.
And, I don't know. when I grew up, my parents' solutions to conflicts was yelling, screaming, throwing things, and occasionally throwing punches, right? So that was not good examples of how to do conflict resolution. So conflict frightened me of any kind. I had that mentality that it must mean the end, because if you loved each other, why would you be fighting?
Right. I think that is another casualty of the way our society has been developing in recent years, of we just don't know how to sit with discomfort. But the thing about being uncomfortable is you don't grow in your comfort zone ever. Like you never will. You never can, right? Like we have to, and so it's like the first time we see conflict or drama, or like you said, just an argument in a relationship, which living and loving anyone, you're never going to get along perfectly. And the more you love someone, the more they hold up a mirror for what you need to work on in yourself, right? Whether like not in a bad way, but it's just being like, no one triggers you like someone you love immensely, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The more you love
and when
them,
you
the
get
deeper it
and when you
hurts.
get yes, and when you get triggered, it's not a sign that they are unsafe or not good for you or not healthy. It's a sign that it's like, oh, I never dealt with this, or I thought I had dealt with this, but nope, we've been shoving it down, and it's time to finally tackle this with the safe person in front of me that's willing to walk through me on that healing journey, right? Who's willing to like hold my hand and step through this with me, because I feel like so many of us like have that trauma, and have like many of us did not have healthy relationships or conflict resolution modeled for us at all, right?
Yeah,
And so it's like we're all kind of learning, like we're all, I feel like all of our inner children, we're all stuck at age 8, like looking at each other like, oh, how do we do this adult thing, right? And so, but it's like I said, with being so out of practice with sitting with the uncomfortable, how do we regulate through that process of like, oh, you're holding up a mirror, I do want to deal with this, I do want to heal, I do want to grow. But it's like if you're not used to even being uncomfortable, that's anxiety, that's fear, like your nervous system is like, this is unsafe, this is like the worst thing that could ever happen to us, and so you have that tendency to just run to the next person, right, who they haven't caused that feeling in me yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so you never grow in your relationship. And if you look at Hollywood, it's almost a tendency for them to, the minute that there's problems in the relationship, well, that's the end of it, right? Because that must mean the love is over. But that's actually where the love grows. You know, I'm
Yes.
Catholic, and so, you know, Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me. Well, to me, the crucifixion is a perfect example of the marital relationship or the love relationship, right? Because if you're not willing to stay on that cross, and you're going to feel like you're dying because your ego is dying, but if you're not willing to stay on that cross to the point where you bleed out, you know, and you just can't anymore, there's nothing left to give, and then you don't get to the glory and the resurrection in the relationship.
Yes.
You don't get to the other side. Your relationships will always be stunted at the point where you gave up, and so the next relationship won't benefit because you're still going to reach that point. Every relationship's going to bring you to that point. It's
and you
just
never
human
learn to
nature.
go through the pain to get past it to the healing. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, no, I always think it's so funny because you'll hear a lot of people talk about like, oh, all guys are the same or all women are the same and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, if you're dating all of these vastly different personalities and people and like they have nothing in common and you're repeating the same patterns and you're repeating the same relationship over and over again, it's not because all of these people are the same. We do have a tendency to attract, like I said, the familiar kind of relationship dynamics and people that we have grown up with our whole lives. But it's also recognizing that in that moment of being like, oh, that means I'm also enacting the same behaviors and patterns of thoughts and reacting in conflict and in the situation that keeps replaying the conflict over and over again. Like if you're never getting a different result, it's because we're not trying something new in the process.
Well, also, I would say that one of God's techniques is to use the people around us as mirrors to show us sides of ourselves that we could not see otherwise. And so if you're constantly in relationship patterns where, you know, people are doing the same things, it's because you're refusing to look at what the mirror is showing you.
Yes. No, God has been doing that with me all, like I said, since like the spring of like, because my favorite thing about like Jacob's stories, everyone's like, oh, Jacob meets himself in his father-in-law. Like Laban is who he's been his entire life. Like what better way to refine Jacob, who is now going to be Israel, right? Other than to be like, hey, look at what you've done to everyone your whole life. How do you like it? You know, and that happens so often. I always say, like, if you hate a characteristic or a trait or something about a person, that's because you're projecting. Like we all know it, but we don't apply it to ourselves of being like, oh, that person's so arrogant. Like if you hate arrogance in someone else, it's because you struggle with a pride issue and you know that about yourself and you don't value that about yourself. So of course, when you're confronted with it glaringly obvious in someone else, you're like, oh, I can't stand them. They're like the grossest person ever. But the funny thing is, I've also realized now too, like I'm really good at like if somebody is irking me in that sense, I'm like, oh, that's something I need to reflect on. Like, how does that lesson apply to me? Because obviously something about them's bothering them. That's a me thing more than a them thing. But now I'm also realizing like, oh, when I give people advice, God's always like, hey, that's for you more than them, by the way.
Exactly.
So I'm like, oh, okay, that's the other side of the coin to take it to like, oh yeah, I'm telling people like, oh, you need to rest, you need to, you know, take time off. You can't perform it like on an empty tank anyways. And then God's like, no way. Who does that more than you? Like,
exactly.
You got empty and trying to pour into everyone else. Yeah.
It's like last month, I did something for someone. I had taken a lot of time to do it, put my heart into it, really gave it my all and gave it to them. And all they could do was find the things that they didn't like about it and pick it to pieces. And, you know, I was crushed. I was devastated. This person is really close to me. So it was very hurtful coming from them, especially. And it was me trying to help them with a situation they didn't know how to help themselves. So, like I said, it just added to that feeling of hurt and pain. And of course, I took it to the Lord and he's like, yeah, about that. That person is my work of art that I spent decades creating and refining to help you solve particular problems that you didn't know how to solve yourself. And all you can do is pick them apart and tell me what I need to fix and tell me what's not working. So if that hurts you, can you please stop doing that to me?
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, my bad. You got it.
Right.
It doesn't take
I
the
know.
sting
Yeah.
away all the time, but it does help when you look at it that way, because then you're learning and growing from each thing that happens that's so painful. And then you're growing in your
Yes.
capacity to
Yes.
love.
Oh, I love that.
And you're
The other.
becoming stronger in your ability to forgive and to
Mm-hmm.
grow from these experiences rather than having them become toxic. Like you were saying earlier, if something triggers you, it's because you've got a wound you haven't healed. Like there's a
Yes.
book that
Yes.
I'm working on writing or editing, actually. I've written it, but I need to edit it, called The Trouble with Temptation. And a woman lands on his doorstep who's his ultimate temptation. But in the process of the story, I had to realize, I was like, I was obsessed with writing this thing, and I wasn't doing several other projects that I needed to be doing. And I was like, why
Mm-hmm.
is this such a temptation for me? It's like, why is this story so gripping for me? And I realized, okay,
Mm-hmm.
temptation steps into the place where we're wounded and says,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you haven't fixed this. I can offer you a quick fix if you'll just do what I
Yes.
say.
The ego
I can
solve,
fix the
right?
problem.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's temptation's role, is really to alert us to areas we're wounded, just like triggers alert
Mm-hmm.
us to areas that we haven't healed yet.
Yes, yes, yeah. No, I love that. And it's very true. And the thing to keep in mind with your friend being very critical is that comes from a lack of control. That comes from a I feel lost. But it also is because if they're criticizing you that much, they were taught to criticize themselves even more, right? They were
Oh,
taught to
I know her
tear
background
themselves to
and her
pieces.
story,
Yes,
and well,
yes.
and I know that her mother, the slightest thing she did wrong, that her mother and her sister both, the slightest thing that she did wrong as a child was, like cats,
Yes, yes,
pouncing
right.
on her and ripping her to pieces and calling her all kinds of horrible names and
Mm-hmm.
telling her she was stupid and she'd never make
Yeah.
anything of herself, the whole kind of thing. And she's of a generation where they didn't get taught how to deal with that
Yes.
they even needed to deal with it.
Yes.
Like it's in the past, you should just be able to forget it and let go. Problem is,
Mm-hmm.
your past never really stays in your past.
No.
You bring your past with you everywhere you go. The question is whether or not you've integrated into yourself in a healthy way and found ways
Mm-hmm.
to make yourself better because of the past, or whether you've ignored
Right.
it and you're carrying it around as baggage.
Yes, yes.
That's the only difference.
It's so important because, life is heaven or not based off your perspective. But the way that you get to that better perspective is first you have to validate and honor the pain, justice, the unfair, the horrible things that you've gone through. After you validate that in yourself, that's when you can move to a different way of seeing it, right? But you
Yeah,
have to
exactly.
first give yourself that validation, heal the shame, let go of the shaming that we've all been taught is supposed to motivate us somehow, even though that turns off your logic part of your brain and just you can't function, you can't do anything alone learn. Um, but I think a lot of people try to encourage, like, especially when you've been healed a little bit, you're just like, oh, jump to the good perspective. It's like, no, we need to validate the crap out of ourselves first. And then after we've healed that fresh pain and kind of let it scab over and all of that stuff, scar, then you can work on like perspectives and things like that. I think we're coming close to our time, so we should
Yeah,
maybe
we
talk
are.
about how did we meet, Tonya? And then
Yes.
like I said, any like last writing author, where can we find you best you want to do, and then we can end. It's been such a
Yeah,
wonderful time talking though.
it
I
has
love
been. It's
this.
been great. I met Tonya at a Las Vegas writers retreat. A couple of friends of mine were hosting the retreat, and I was there to help present and also to attend. And Tonya was there attending. She met them there in Las Vegas. Um, and yeah, that's how we got together. And she and I talked and just clicked. And she's such a beautiful soul, such a beautiful soul.
Oh, yes.
And
Love
then
Tonya.
I got to work with her. She invited me to be at the Las Vegas Writers Conference as a presenter, and then we've worked on and off through various projects. And the 52 Love podcast, she invited me and my husband to be on and to talk about our relationship. And then we did her, one of her tips was to, explore new places together. And so that was the one that we did on her
Oh, that's
podcast.
lovely. Yeah. So I know Tonya just from the online writing community and space. I think I had come across her on a podcast that one of my other friends was host of. I just loved her vibes, her story, like she's so engaging and charismatic and just like a wonderful person to be on a podcast. So we ended up connecting after the show. She's been on a couple of my podcasts that we had on, and I was very excited when she invited me onto her 52 Love podcast. I was a little nervous because, like I said, I usually tend to write a lot of like YA, like maybe they kiss at book 3 kind of. There's no like very clean, like I never really loved delving into like the open door kind of romancy aspects, and I'm not a huge romance writer anyways. It's always like love is like a big part of the story because it's a big part of life, but it was never a romance that I would write. And so I was like a little nervous when she invited me on the podcast, but like I said, it was a wonderful experience, like I said, of just practicing stepping out of your comfort zone. And like I said, that nice experience of like, I don't bake for anyone. Baking for him, I think, made him feel very, very special, that I was like willing to try when I was so terrified of it. And so like I was like, oh, what a great experience to be on her podcast as well. But yeah,
It
she's just
was.
a gem of a human being. I just really love Tonya. She's just way too busy to ever
Yes.
catch and talk to.
I know, right? That is
But
the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but I think you
like
mentioned
I said,
where, yeah, you're.
Yeah, the story that I wrote came out of the book The End of Purgatory, and it's actually not really a romance as much as it is a drama, a psychodrama, because it's basically a young woman who's escaping a 6-year abusive relationship. She's finally come to the point where she's ready to leave it, and she has met John, the character that you'll read about in this book, but she's a little bit scared of him because he's not behaving the way that she's come to expect. And so he causes her to stop and realize that she doesn't know what love is. Like, that's her core problem. She doesn't know. And so but in the middle of it, just because you're done with a narcissistic relationship doesn't mean the narcissist is done with you. And that's one of the reasons I wrote it, is because I wanted to put it out there as kind of a cautionary tale for young women who find the bad boy so exciting. It's exciting in the beginning, but it can be deadly. It's not a game to play.
Yes.
The men who are that badly damaged can be very dangerous. Very dangerous. And your family can be affected by how dangerous and volatile they become. Because at the core, they've got that same wound that says, I'm not worthy of love. And so when you turn away from them and you quote unquote abandon them, even if you're not the one who really did the abandoning, even if they kicked you out, they'll blame you for abandoning them. And because there's such a core wound to them, they will come back at you, and they will not let go until they have either destroyed you or destroyed themselves. It's kind of sad in a lot of ways, but that's what the book is about, is her trying to get away from that. So, all right. So, all right. Did you have anything? Yeah, if people want to catch me, I do have my YouTube channel, Creating with Love. They can email me at 40daywriter@gmail.com. I'm currently switching my website, so I don't really have one right now to offer, but coming soon.
Yes, actually, like I said, I'm in this weird like liminal space, especially in the writing authoring side of my life, where we're working on, like I said, kind of completely pivoting genres, and because my life has been transformed. And so it's like my writing and author stuff has always been like hijinks writer on social media. It's been kind of a quiet space little while, but I will probably if anyone finds me on there, I'll be hopefully posting in the future as I'm working on getting this book rewritten. That's coming out next, and working on delving into more of the writing stuff. We'll put information on there so you can find me Hijinks Writer on Instagram.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Such a pleasure.